Everyone, this is Frank with Teachly University, and welcome to my lecture where we're going to be discussing Tony Robbins and referencing some of his work in Awaken the Giant Within and Unlimited Power. These are some of my favorite books from Tony Robbins, and these are books I think really are timeless. They're just as relevant today as when they were written back in the mid 80s to early 90s. These are some great books, and I think what's great about them is that they really capture much of what is discussed in personal growth and psychology and even neuroplasticity and personal success and personal development. He really does a great job in capturing all of these really important concepts into these two books. And of course, for this lecture, we're going to be diving into really just hitting the tip of the iceberg when it comes to a lot of the content he discusses. But I hope we come away with learning something in this lecture, which is the importance of really reaching our true potential or achieving unlimited power, where we really are able to utilize all of our skills and abilities to become something more and achieve our goals and live our best life possible. So I want to start with a quote from Tony Robbins from his book Awaken the Giant Within, where he says, "Enjoy making decisions. You must know that at any moment a decision you can make can change the course of your life forever. The very next person you stand behind in line or sit next to on an airplane. The very next phone call you make or receive. The very next movie you see or book you read or page you turn could be the one single thing that causes the floodgates to open and all of the things that you've been waiting for to fall into place. If you really want your life to be passionate, you need to live with this attitude of expectancy." So what Robbins is saying here, and I really think this is so important for many of us, is the importance of making a decision and deciding what it is that you really want in your life. Now, every day we make decisions, from deciding what coffee we're going to order at Starbucks to deciding what route we're going to take when we're coming home from work, or even deciding which people we're going to hang out with on the weekend. We make decisions every day. But many of the decisions we make are for trivial matters or matters that don't make much of an impact in our lives. But what Robbins is saying, and what I agree with, is that we need to start making decisions that will make a lasting impact in our lives, whether it comes to our relationships, our health, our finances, our careers, our personal lives. It's making a decision with such a clear intention and knowing what it is that you want with such elevated emotion that what you feel like what you want is here or that it is possible. And what will motivate you, and this is important, what will motivate you to continue to move forward towards achieving your goals and to overcome some of the roadblocks you may face is that motivation, is that feeling that what you want is possible. And that one decision, one moment, one action step that you take in the direction of where you want to go can dramatically transform your life for the better. Whether it's watching this lecture, which I recommend you watch several times to really get a grasp of what it is that what myself and Robbins are trying to say, or from reading a book or taking an action or having a conversation with somebody, an influencer, another entrepreneur, or maybe a friend or relative you haven't talked to in a long time, or any other action that you take. One decision, one moment can change the rest of your life. And when you have this, as Robbins said, this attitude of expectancy that any moment your life can change for the better, that makes life so much more exciting, and also makes it easier to make decisions. And what successful people do, whether it's in business, entrepreneurship, in politics, in the sciences, in sports, is that they make a decision and they stick with it. They decide what they want and they don't deviate, or they don't change course, or at least they don't change course very easily. It takes a lot for them to decide to change. But you need to make a decision about what it is that you want and decide, and be very clear and direct about what it is that you want. That's why I think journaling is so important. When you want to write down what it is that you want with as much detail as you can, or at least have an idea of what it is that you want and move in the direction of where you want to go, which I think is so important. That's why decision making is essential to unleashing the unlimited power within us. So then Robbins says, if you don't set a baseline standard for what you'll accept in your life, you'll find it's easy to slip into behaviors and attitudes or a quality of life that's far below what you deserve. You need to set and live by these standards no matter what happens in your life. So what's important here is that we start to reevaluate what our standards are for what it means to live a good life. And what do I mean by this? If our basic standard for, say, our finances is, well, as long as I'm making $45,000 or $50,000 a year, then I've made it, or I'm comfortable. Or if you're in a relationship that is just average, or in a career that is just average, or your health is okay, where okay, maybe you're healthy to a degree, but maybe you're a little bit overweight, or maybe you have low energy levels, but that's your baseline standard that you're willing to accept. What Robbins is saying is that we have to raise our standards to what we deem a successful life. We don't want unrealistic standards per se, that they're so impossible to achieve that we're only going to be happy until we achieve these standards. But we want standards that will benefit us. We want to raise our standards where we're no longer going to tolerate being around toxic people, or we're no longer going to tolerate living in debt. We're no longer going to tolerate being at a job that does not recognize our skills or your skills and abilities. You want to raise your standards to what kind of life you want to live. And this carries over to your beliefs that can determine your perception of reality. And oftentimes, many of our beliefs are self-limiting, where we have these self-limiting beliefs where we don't feel like we're good enough to achieve a specific goal that we wish to have or to obtain. So it's raising our standards to what is acceptable in our lives. And when we raise our standards, then we automatically then begin to make that shift, that quantum leap towards the direction of our dreams and where we want to go. And this can shift our behaviors and attitudes, where once we say, for example, when it comes to relationships, we're no longer going to tolerate being around toxic people. We make the decision then, hence going back to the previous slide, we make the decision then to no longer be around people that would hurt us, and instead decide to be around people that inspire us and make us into better individuals. So it's raising those standards that is so important, that improves the quality of your life. So then Robbins says, with every great successful person I know shares a capacity to remain centered, clear, and powerful in the midst of emotional storms. How do they accomplish this? Most of them have a fundamental rule. In life, never spend more than 10% of your time on the problem and spend at least 90% of your time on the solution. Most important, don't sweat the small stuff. And remember, it's all small stuff. And this reminds me, and I've referenced Earl Nightingale before, where he says, you become what you think about. And this is the underlying theme of his work in The Greatest Secret. You become what you think about. So if you're focused more on your problems rather than the solutions to those problems, then you embody those very problems. So for example, say you have some debt and you focus more on the problem of debt rather than the solution to this debt, then you will never solve that very problem. You will never be able to pay off this debt because you're focusing on the problem itself. So it's important then, and what every successful person does, is that they focus more on solutions. They take actions that will help them move in the direction of solving that problem. They reshift their focus. They use their imagination in such a way where they imagine achieving this particular goal. And they use their emotions to their advantage. And obviously, on any given day, there's going to be challenges and things that come up that can throw us off. It can make us feel discouraged, frustrated, angry, disappointed, anxious. And it's these emotional storms that we have to learn to manage and to actually use to our advantage. Because as Robin says, that more often than not, much of the stuff we worry about never even happens, or it's really insignificant. And once you come to that realization that most of your worries and anxieties are really just self-induced, where it's due to our vivid imaginations and based on our self-limiting beliefs, that we imagine the worst case scenario. You see then that by simply reshifting our focus, by managing our emotions in such a way where we take the time to feel as if what we want is possible. And we do that by imagining that what we want is already here. And by doing so, that can really dramatically transform your life in reshifting your focus to solutions rather than problems. So then the secret of success is learning how to use pain and pleasure instead of having pain and pleasure use you. If you do that, you're in control of your life. If you don't, life controls you. This was life-changing for me when I read this in Awaken the Giant Within, in Unlimited Power, excuse me, where Robbins talks about how we make decisions based on maximizing pleasure and minimizing pain. And this is a double-edged sword. Some of us, we take or embrace constructive behaviors. We get pleasure from maybe exercising or having exciting conversations or conducive conversations with people we enjoy being with and have a positive influence on our lives. Or perhaps we take enjoyment in eating healthy foods or doing things at work that can help improve our career path and get us promotions. That gives us pleasure. But there's also behaviors that may be pleasurable, but that are not good. They could be addictions in alcohol, and sex and drugs, addictions to video games and behaviors that maybe we take pleasure, at least temporarily, in being around people that reinforce our self-limiting beliefs. They may make us feel good temporarily because we're surrounding ourselves with people that make us feel like we're not alone in our struggles with achieving our goals. But when you step out of that and you look into your life and see that these behaviors actually long-term will cause more pain. And there's a saying that ignorance is bliss. Now, this is actually quite the opposite. What Robbins argues, and no, ignorance is pain. And when you're ignorant of the ways of happiness and joy and achieving success and learning new concepts and ideas that can help you grow as a person, because if you don't grow, you die, that's going to lead to more pain. And oftentimes we see this with procrastination, where we procrastinate because we identify more pain with taking action than by just sitting back and not doing anything. And Grant Cardone, in his book 10X, which we're going to reference in this lecture momentarily, he talks about this, where people end up retreating from their lives because of the pain they associate with taking action, because maybe the failures and disappointments they have in the past. So then to overcome that, it is to change our perceptions on how we identify pain and pleasure, and that we should identify more pleasure with taking action towards the direction of our goals. By not so much concerning ourselves with the results, by focusing on the process itself and the person you become. And by focusing on that person that you wish to become, the results will take care of themselves. And we can identify more pleasure with that. So it's thinking about taking time every single day by doing things that give us pleasure in our work, in our relationships, in our health, in our personal lives. And by minimizing pain. And pain we experience more in the long term because maybe we engage in negative behaviors that give us short-term pleasure, but that will lead to long-term pain. So it's focusing then on behaviors and actions and thought processes that will give us more pleasure, while at the same time also helping us achieve more in our lives. So the truth of the matter is that there's nothing you can't accomplish if, number one, you clearly decide what it is that you're absolutely committed to achieving. Number two, you are willing to take massive action. And number three, you notice what's working or not, and you continue to change your approach until you achieve what you want using whatever life gives you along the way. So, number one, and we discussed this earlier in the lecture, it's deciding what it is that you're absolutely committed to achieving. What is it that you want? What do you want to accomplish? And be clear about that. Don't worry necessarily about how you're going to get there. And I think this is what deters a lot of people from setting goals, is that they want to achieve something, but they don't know how to get there. You're not going to know every step along the way. But when you know what you want and you're very clear about it and hold an elevated intention and emotion with that goal and move in the direction of that goal by taking massive action, things begin to happen. Synchronicities, new opportunities and experiences, chance occurrences, new relationships, new job opportunities, new experiences that you will have when you begin to then finally decide that this is what I want, and I'm going to take massive action and believe that what I want is possible. And you continue to do this until you get what you want, and you use whatever resources you have available. Every person is different. Some people have more money and resources than somebody else. But we all have 24 hours in a given day. And we all have the energy then to use what we have available to get what we want. And today, thanks to the internet, thanks to all these social media platforms and resources and tools available, the information is out there where you can learn to get what you want. It's not a mystery anymore. You can learn almost anything, anywhere, and anytime on how to achieve anything. This lecture is a testament to that, where just by watching this lecture, you can learn something that can dramatically improve your life. So it's making the most of what we have and being clear about what we want and taking action towards the direction of our goals. So then the birth of excellence begins with our awareness that our beliefs are a choice. We usually don't think of it that way, but belief can be a conscious choice. You can choose beliefs that limit you, or you can choose beliefs that support you. The trick is to choose the beliefs that are conducive to success and the results you want, and to discard the ones that hold you back. And as I said before, all of us have self-limiting beliefs. And it's safe to assume that many of us have experienced some sort of trauma in our lives, even going back to childhood. Maybe we struggled with poverty, abuse. Perhaps we struggled with unemployment. We struggled with relationships, loneliness, poor physical or mental health, and so on and so forth. All of us have experienced some sort of trauma and setback. And it is through these disappointments of the past that can lead to self-limiting beliefs that are reinforced through repetitive thoughts and behaviors. So what Robbins is suggesting, and I've suggested in many of my lectures, is the power of self-awareness. We become conscious of where we are and what self-limiting beliefs we have, and to make new choices by embracing and choosing new beliefs that support you. And you choose these new beliefs by then imagining what these beliefs look like, feel them, not just mentally. You can't intellectualize this process, but through your physiology, act as if you are this person, act as if you are confident, act as if you are loved. And when you contemplate this, using your imagination, you can cultivate new beliefs that are much more empowering for you and that don't hold you back. And this can be a process that can take a little bit of time. We have these beliefs for years, if not decades, and it may take some time to change them. That's why meditation, journaling, learning, reading, and following the success of others and what they did, and by modeling the success of other people we admire, that can help us change these beliefs into more empowering ones. So then the world we live in is the world we choose to live in. Whether consciously or unconsciously, if we choose bliss, that's what we get. If we choose misery, we get that too. So it goes back to the previous lecture that we can begin to make a choice. We can make the decision right now that we are going to live our best life. We can make the decision right now that life is truly amazing. We can make the decision right now that we are abundant, that we are healthy, that we are wealthy, even if there's nothing in our environment to necessarily validate that. But by deliberately choosing the life that we want to live, our life can begin to change immediately. We don't have to wait for something outside of us to change how we think and feel. So we all have a choice whether we realize it or not, but it is cultivating what happens in our internal world and in our own minds and what we choose to think about on a consistent basis. So if you don't plant the mental and physiological seeds, I stress the word physiological, we can't just intellectualize this process. If you don't plant the mental and physiological seeds of the results you want, weeds will grow automatically. If we don't consciously direct our own minds and states, our environment may produce undesirable, haphazard states. The results can be disastrous. Thus, it's critical that on a daily basis we stay on guard at the door of our mind, that we know how we are consistently representing things to ourselves. We must daily weed our garden. This reminds me of Dr. Joseph Murphy and the power of the subconscious mind. So many of our behaviors are totally unconscious. We're not even aware of them, but we engage in them on a daily basis. And this is done through constant repetition, repetitive thoughts and action that reinforce these same behaviors and these same mental models that give us the same predictable results. So in order for us then to change and to unleash these awesome powers within us. It's about planting the seeds of success and empowerment on a subconscious level where it becomes ingrained in our personality. And we do this by being much more deliberate in the direction of where we want to go. We must be conscious and direct our minds and states. And what happens to many of us, and I'm guilty of this, is we enter this victim mindset where everything that happens to us, even the bad things, is because it's outside of our control. That we're victims, that we're helpless. Or as Martin Seligman talks about in positive psychology, it's learned helplessness, where we just feel that we don't have the power to change our lives. And that's why we get into these ruts and these repetitive behaviors that totally go underneath our consciousness, but yet are part of our personality that give us haphazard or undesirable results for that matter. But in order for us to change and unleash these powers within us, we must consciously direct our minds and states. We must stay aware of our thoughts and actions. And not to sound repetitive, but be deliberate and clear about what we want and move in that direction of where we want to go and the kind of life we want to live. And to stand guard at the door of our mind. We must remove all this negative chatter that we see on social media and the 24-hour news cycle. Negativity is everywhere. And so we have to really be mindful of that and take in only the good stuff that is going to empower us, such as the content in this lecture and others, to help empower us and make us feel good and make us believe that what we want is possible, and that can help us reshape our personalities in a much more positive way. So to quote Grant Cardone from the book 10X, as long as you are alive, you will either live to accomplish your goals and dreams or be used as a resource to accomplish someone else's. Until you become completely obsessed with your mission, no one will take you seriously. Until the world understands that you're not going away, that you're 100% committed and have complete and utter conviction and will persist in pursuing your project, you will not get the attention you need and the support you want. So with Grant Cardone in 10X, a great book, by the way, another one I recommend, is that we have to make success a priority. I'm going to say that again. In order for us to live a better life, we have to make success a priority. We shouldn't settle for average. We need to be 100% committed to wanting to change our life with conviction and persistence. And I understand the frustration that one will experience when pursuing a goal and it doesn't come to fruition. Maybe we've reached out to a number of people, we've sent emails, phone calls, no one seems to want to hear us. And this is a challenge for many of us, is that maybe we have all these talents and abilities, but nobody knows who you are. It's obscurity. That is one of the biggest challenges that you're going to face in getting what you want, and that is obscurity. You have a product or service you want to sell, you want to have better relationships, you want to improve your life, but nobody knows who you are, and you need other people to help you get where you want to go. So in order to overcome obscurity, then, it's making a commitment that you're willing to put yourself out there and you're willing to take action and not be afraid if you get embarrassed or if something doesn't go your way, but by putting yourself out there and making a commitment to want to change, you will unleash these powers you never thought you had to improve your life for the better. And to quote Robbins' book, to awaken that giant within. And we all have that giant within us that if we unleash, there's no stopping us. So I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Make sure you hit that like button. Also subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can watch all my lectures on personal growth, creativity, wealth building, and entrepreneurship. Thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.